All right, so this is my friend Mick, who originally was one of the original people that came over.
I was in this room.
When we had that beautiful building in Bryn Mawr.
Yeah, I've been that one thing.
We had some extra features. We had mouse traps.
Yes.
Yeah. We had some smelly rooms. Anybody remembers the Bryn Mawr office?
Don't forget the roach.
It was a little rough.
Don't forget
You were there.
the roaches.
The roaches.
And yeah, couldn't get in, you have to ring the bell, and
Yeah,
then
and
like
ring
ring
the bell.
somebody, and no one is there, and then it's
Someone
like,
walk down and get you. Like, we gotta get out of this spot.
and there was like 3 cars that were always, there was a Mike's car, or Jim's car, and there was another car, and then there was, yeah, I think,
Wasn't a lot of guests. It was during Corona cars too, so that was
Yeah,
also
yeah,
another
yeah.
issue too.
so, we were in this room, actually, that's where we carried the desk from out there, we brought it in here.
Yeah, good memory.
Yeah, and there was no Shake Shack there yet, and we're like, we were hanging to see Shake Shack there.
Because they were doing construction out there, so we
Yeah,
had this
yeah.
meeting room in here. I didn't forgot about that. So let's get to your background. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Melbourne, Australia.
Australia. Okay. So not that close to here.
No, it's a long way away.
How long would that take you?
Oh shit! So I actually, funny thing, I'm going back December 6th, and I had a flight book on Booking.com, and it was like a direct flight. Well, it's not direct. You go from Melbourne to LA to probably to Melbourne, or you can go LA to Singapore, whatever flight you take. So I booked the flight for like 4,800 for premium economy. Sweet, and it was actually like 25 hours, like actually 26 hours door to door.
Wow.
And then the next morning I wake up and it's the flight's cancelled. Booking.com cancelled it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So then I go back online.
By the way, he swears. He
He
swears in the last minute.
Okay, sorry. So anyway, I go back online, and that United flight is not 4,800, it's gone to 8,600. And then I call Booking.com, like, what's going on? Oh, it's a vendor. So what? They said didn't go through, but my credit card was charged. And then they put the money back on the next day. So for a whole week, I'm pretty much just out of it, trying to look for flights. So from a 20, and then I found a flight with Air New Zealand, which was 38 hours. It was economy from in the States, and there was a premium economy, and that was $6,000. That was still being processed, and after a week, I just said, stuff it, cancel it, because it didn't go through. And I got a business class seat back with United, the same flight that I had before, for 6,800. So I worked out, I was a winner in the end, but I lost hair.
So the next time we get on a flight, we're complaining about going home.
No, it's the worst. It's still take 30 hours.
So you grew up there.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up as a kid? Do you have brothers and sisters, parents around, not around? Tell me about that.
I had 2 younger brothers, and Daniel. Where I lived was a pretty rough area back in Melbourne. So basically, come from a pretty rough upbringing, but my family was all great, we got along well. We played outside. Across the road was a paddock, so we had, what is it? A paddock? Like, a paddock is what you would call this land, like this parcel of land. So just vacant lots. So we had one side of the street was all houses, and the other side of the street was still getting developed. There's nothing there, a house was coming up. Now there's all houses there. This is Melbourne. So it was right next to the airport where I live.
How far is it to Sydney?
It's 8 hours drive. And so I grew up there
So a farm-ish kind of land?
No, it was just like where I lived was on the outskirts of Melbourne, suburbia. So basically Melbourne just grows out. Melbourne doesn't grow up. So when I was a kid, back in like 45, so it was 76, and then that's when I was born, and so there was not much development there. Now Melbourne just goes out. So where I live and where I grew up is no longer the outskirts of Melbourne. It's like kilometers out. But yeah, I had a great youth.
Did you drive on the left side or right side?
We drove on the opposite side.
Opposite
So every time I go back home now, I turn onto the other side of the street, I'm playing chicken for the first time. It's nuts.
How about steering wheel?
Well, the indicators and everything are on a different side too. But I don't know if you drive like Volkswagens, I think they have different here too. Like, so I used to get that even driving here. Turn on the wipers instead of the indicator. But
So you're driving on the left hand, so you're getting the car. You're driving on the left.
Well, even now, I think that I am getting into my driver's side. I might just walk around to the passenger side too. So I still have that.
All right.
But yeah, I mean,
Did you play sports?
I played sports all my life. I was a professional athlete.
What sports you play growing up?
So I was a squash player my whole life. So my parents actually worked in a squash center when I was born.
Okay.
So I'm a very light sleeper, so to speak. But
What's that mean?
I wake up to everything,
Okay.
but I can actually sleep in a squash center with the balls bang. I know anyone knows squash.
Can you describe squash?
So squash is basically everyone knows racquetball. So it's a faster version of racquetball. Racquetball came from squash. Squash here is a mainline sport, so to speak. It's private, and the rest of the world it's all public. So it's basically two guys on the squash court in a box, hitting the ball to the front wall, and you can hit it to the front wall from hitting the side wall or the back wall. It's probably one of the fittest sports out there. I mean, it's a very intense.
Longer racket than a racquetball.
Yeah, it's longer racket than a racquetball, smaller than a tennis racket, and it's it's probably one of the most physical sports out there. I've been playing. I started that when I was 2, so basically since I was like hold a racket, and that was my life. I was a professional athlete. When I was 9 years old, I was playing adult squash. Like I ran through a guy's legs to get to the ball, and I did was play squash. I was the best in my country. I represented my country.
You represent your country. What does that mean?
I was the #1 Australian squash player for like 10 years for my age group. So I was like under 11s all the way to under 19s. I was the best player in my country, and squash.
So what did you do to other countries to compete?
As well, like I turned professional when I was like 15 and a half. I was the youngest professional squash player come out of Australia. And so by the time I was 15 and a half, I traveled to Europe and played matches around the world. My first time here was just because my sponsor was sponsoring the Super Series event in Switzerland. And I was 15 and a half, so my first trip was over. And I get to Switzerland with traveler's checks, like back then. And
Traveler's checks, right?
And I get there, there's no one to pick me up. So it's like 6:30 in the morning. And I basically change money, call my parents. My parents call my manager. My manager calls the people here. They forgot to pick me up.
There's no Uber.
There's no Uber, there's nothing. So I'm there, I'm like, yeah, no one speaks English, but Switzerland, luckily, people speak English. And yeah, so from my whole life, I just played squash. Like actually, it's only been, I got my license in 2018. I've only really been a full-time real estate agent for 2.5 years. And after being a professional athlete, I was a professional athlete very young, so I was only 16, and I was already touring the world.
Who was your sponsor?
I was sponsored by all like squash brands like Stella, like I guess one for tennis that was Technifiber.
Yeah.
So I was sponsored by Technifiber for like 10 years at least.
So they paid for you to travel?
No. I paid myself. So when I was 14, I did summer jobs. I worked. I would train in the morning, I would train in the afternoon, I would work. In summer, I would work. There's no school to save money to pay for my career of squash touring. And I was lucky when I was 16 at that time, after I came to Switzerland, that sponsor gave me 20 grand to tour the world to be a professional. And that lasted me till I was 19 and a half. And I was living in Australia, and I thought, well, stuff that I can't just keep on flying from Australia to Europe, come back and go here, go there. So then I based myself in Europe when I was in the middle of 96, so 97, I was a resident of Holland.
So right out of high school?
I didn't go to high school. So basically when I was playing World Juniors, I played the World Juniors in New Zealand, I was 18. I come back home, and on the table, after coming out from school, there is Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Penn, all giving me scholarships to come over here and go to college. I'm like, what hell do I go back to school for? I'm touring the world playing squash, making money. So I didn't take that path. Actually, what happened was when I had to do my end of year, like your last year of school, there is an exam you have to do. You have to pass like SATs to get into college. But this was at the same time that I was playing the World Juniors in Christchurch. So I said, well, stop it. I'm not going to give up. Back then, there was no internet, so I had to actually choose to do this test or go play the World Juniors. I went and played the World Juniors. Then I came back and I get these scholarships. And so, yeah.
That's fun. Did you guys catch one of the things he said brings back memories and see if you remembers his travel checks?
Yeah.
All right, we're old now.
Right.
Exactly. When you see let's complain about anything today, it was a lot harder to do on things back then.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, what were we talking about?
So you could have went to Harvard, Yale.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You decided not to, you stayed professional. What kind of money can a professional squash player make?
Oh, nothing. Basically nothing. I basically paid what I made from playing squash, supported me playing squash. So that's when I chose to move to Europe to play sport. I would play leagues then, I'd make my money, I would coach. So when I moved to Amsterdam, I actually moved from Melbourne to Amsterdam because there was a sport institute starting there. So I would play and then I would coach. And that's what killed me at the end of the day. Being a professional athlete and then having to support your career by standing up and coaching, by the time I was 23, like, so when I was 19, I moved over and I was like 100 in the world. I got to like 61, but I had big guys in the top 10. I had big guys in all. Unless you're in the top 5, I didn't have a chance, but under that, I'd give you a go. And I'm a kid playing an adult's game.
Why, because they were older?
Well, their bodies are mature too. So from the age of like 9, I was training 4 hours a day. Like there was no one fitter than me. The good thing about Australia is we had sports institutes. So for my whole junior career, I would go to the Australian Institute of Sport. I would go and get tested. They would even put me up against other athletes. And they would like measure us, and that's how I was up there in like the top 5 athletes at my time that time. I was like tired.
I will tell you this, I feel lazy talking to you.
I feel lazy now thinking about what I used to do.
Anybody else feel that way? Listen, like what you went through as a kid, you're traveling, the world, what you accomplished then. Well, what do you think made you so successful?
I mean, I was very competitive. I had a very tough upbringing. I was pushed very hard. I didn't have to be pushed very hard, but I do thank my parents, my dad especially, for pushing me very hard, and my coaches and everyone. Like Sunday mornings training since I was like 10 until I left to come here to Europe. It was a throw-up session every Sunday morning. You wouldn't train hard unless you threw up, which helped because I'd go out partying on Saturday night playing a squash game. Play Sunday morning, I just run, throw up, and then keep on running. That was part of what I did. Also, the fact that I wanted to get out of Australia.
How was it, Greg? What else? I've never been here. What was it like?
It's a nice place to live, but you're at the arse end of the world. There's nothing like it's so isolated. Everything is just. Once I was actually went to Europe, I was quite lucky. My first trip to my sponsor, very wealthy. He was actually Romanian royalty, but he lived in Switzerland. Joe, like so rich, had everything. Like go to his house, and all of a sudden, like M3, M5, like the 650, this and that. And here's me coming from it was a risk. Not a risk. I say it was sort of like potluck if my parents' car would turn in the morning to go to school. So I had no idea. So once there's like I'm eating at the table with them like 4 having like peas and stuff, and I'm scoffing at that like this, and here they are with the opposite side. So I'm like, you can eat like that. So here's me going back home, and I'm trying to do that because we always have peas at home. I'm like, this is how they eat back over there, and they're looking at me like, are you like, yeah. So I guess.
So what made you help? So I remember this part of the story. So you literally gave up being a professional, and then you found some wealthy people, and you traveled the world, and you taught kids, right?
Well, I didn't give up being professional. I had 3 years. I was training in Malta because at that time I was actually playing for Malta because I had a Maltese passport as well. And I have 3 herniated discs in my back. So I'm training over in Malta. I'm living in Amsterdam. I'm training in Malta for the month, and I run to the front, and my back cramps up, and I'm in a ball, and I'm in pain. Like I'm just like this pain that I had before. And for like 2 years before that, everyone was massaging my glute and my hamstring, saying, I'm like, but I have this nerve pain. They're like, get to like. In Holland, I didn't get an MRI. In Holland, the health system is a lot different than here because they're not afraid of getting sued in Holland if you go to the hospital. So getting an MRI, I'd have to pay like 10 grand, and my pocket, I couldn't afford that. And being 22, 23, no one would think you had herniated discs. So what happened was I'm in this ball, and obviously in Malta, I'm part of the national team, so they paid for me to get an MRI scan. And then the neurologist looked at it, and they didn't want to put me in that machine. And they're all like this, it's like coming out. And yeah, you ain't playing squash again. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's all I do. He says, yeah, you got this herniated disc that you shouldn't have this. I think my S1, L4, L5. So that was pretty hard to accept. I was like bedridden for 3 months. I came back from Malta to Holland and just in bed for 3 months. Like I couldn't even go to the bathroom. Like anytime I would tense my guts, everything would just seize up. Like basically just pass out. And after 3 months, I just was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to try and play. So after 2 years, like I said, I'm 25 then, I started playing again. I actually won a few tournaments, but I couldn't walk afterwards. So I was always a coach, so I was still coaching.
Yeah.
I just gave that coaching up when I was 26 and just took on coaching full time. I've always coached. I love coaching. I was the youngest qualified coach back in Australia. I was 14 when I got my coaching diploma. So my parents had a squash centre when I was 16, so I was the head coach there. So I've always been coaching, and so now the stuff I was coaching full time. I'm doing it anyway, that's how I make my money. And then from that, it went into coaching kids, to coaching professionals. I was a national coach in the Czech Republic. And that was really my last job, national coach Czech Republic. Then I moved here. And I coached here. That's how I got my visa to come here and coach.
Why Philly?
Friends of mine had a squash club here, and it was a public squash club, Fairmount Athletic Club.
Okay.
I had a lot of offers to come over and coach here for years, coaching in colleges, coaching in country clubs. I just didn't want to do it because I saw, for me, squash is for everybody. Sport should be for everybody. It shouldn't be elitist, so to speak. And that's the reason what stopped me from coming to America. But all my friends come over here so much earlier. Oh, that's great money. You make very good money as a squash coach here. Well, better. You make good money as a squash coach here. Better money than what you would back over in Europe. But it's not as fulfilling in that respect.
How did you get caught? How did you get set up with traveling with kids across the country? Wealthy. You were the coach, right?
Yeah, so when I was coaching here, when I moved here, it was at the public squash centre, and we would get a lot of kids from all the clubs, like Marion, all the country clubs, all the private schools. They would come and train with us, and they would go back there. So I would take these kids to Europe to play the tournament once a year. There was a Dutch Open in June.
You had a private plan with them?
Oh no. But I used to take kids away more.
Private plans or public plans?
No, I wasn't private plane. Yeah. I'm not that rich. I'm not that.
I didn't know if the parents were. So you're.
Well, the parents are quite. Well, the parents they could, but they wouldn't. Yeah. Unless someone else is paying for it.
So then you coached for years.
Yeah.
And then how did you make this transition from being this dedicated, determined, unbelievable athlete and get into real estate?
So, okay.
What year is this?
So 2018, I got my license. I got my license because I started to look for a house. Everyone I tried to look for a house with, like every agent just pissed me off. And I had time during the day to look at houses because I coach. Like my whole life is I work when other people don't. I'm in the leisure industry. And every agent's not showing houses during the day, showing at night for some reason. So I thought, well, stuff it, I'll get my real estate license. And my first transaction was my own house.
Where is that in?
I bought that in Fort Washington. I lived in King of Prussia apartment, and I was always looking on the main line out here, and I'm out Fort Washington, and I'm like, holy crap, like, it's really nice out here. It's quite funny because we bought a house in 2018, and it's a street, like Town Road, and you come down the street, there's all $1 million houses, like, unbelievable. Manufacturers golf course, come down, and then I'm like, this is the street I'm on, and all of a sudden they see, okay, 300s and 400s, okay, we're in the right side. And this area now, Fort Washington looks like in the top 20 richest postcodes in the area right now. Just from, obviously, because of those houses, not because of my house. So basically, I was coaching. The reason why I got into it is that a student of mine, his mom is a real estate agent. She said I'd be really good at it. When I was living in Europe, and when
Berkshire, right?
Yeah, and when I was living in Europe, when I was living here, I was helping people move over here. I was helping them with their green cards, helping them where to live, like wherever they were. I was connecting them. So I was like, you might as well get paid for it.
So you started Berkshire.
So I started Berkshire. So her name is Jane Broderson. She was like probably the best help I've had. Like she was a real estate attorney. And it all started for me. She traveled with me to Europe with her son to play a squash tournament. It's a group. And she said I'd be good at it. I didn't think anything of it. But I needed another career because in America, I mean, it's just, this is the best country to start a business and to really, if you want to do something, this is like really the best place. I was a photographer in Europe. I did a sports distribution. I've done so many different jobs, even in Europe. This is really.
So if anybody wants to complain, which it comes across her mind, remember what he went through, and right now when the market's switching, we're still very, very lucky to have what we have, right?
Oh, mate, it's nuts. Like, if I was a squash pro, like during COVID, like I had nothing. Like no one's getting a squash lesson, and like real estate, in some ways, there's always winners and there's always losers, but either got people going to be buying homes, people are going to be selling homes. So, I mean, you just got to choose what side of the fence you are.
Yep. So you're at Berkshire.
Yeah, and so, so I was still a squash coach and I was with Berkshire. I didn't want to get straight into real estate because I had to make money and my wife is here and she obviously works too.
What's she do?
She's a marketing director. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't actually be where I am right now. Because basically, when the squash center I was at, that closed down, I had to move to another center, and I was still trying to pick up my career. I didn't make any money from real estate for the first couple of years. I had a couple of listings. I was trying my ass off, and I thought that I could use my squash network to get listings,
Hold on 1 second. So remember this, anybody can't put this is really good, he's about to drop a gold nugget. Anybody that's left an industry who thinks you're gonna crush it off that industry, just remember what she's about to say. I'm not saying you can or you can't. You left.
So yeah, I'm there like, giving squash lessons to these wealthy people. And I'm being a real estate agent, telling them what I'm going to do and think I can get it. And they would let me take their kids to Europe, but they wouldn't let me sell their home. I'm like, I can see what's more important to you in your life. That was a real eye-opener for me in that way, that I'm pushing shit up the hill trying to get anything from these guys. Like my first actual listing came from one of my clients, squash clients, gave me a ticket to go watch the BMW Classic at Aronimink. And I parked at some guy's house in his backyard, and I hounded him for a year. Like saying, mate, I'd love to sell your house. He's like, yeah, mate, there's been 4 agents that can do it, they haven't done it. And I'm like, just give me 2 weeks, I'll be able to sell it for like a year. And then on like just after New Year's, he texts me back, I'm ready to sell now. I'll give you 2 weeks. And so that was my first listing that I got from Squash.
2020?
Yeah, just before COVID, just before everything happened. So, and that's how I got, that was my first, so I don't use my squash, I had to reinvent myself. basically had to totally reinvent myself, which was great because I could meet new people. I mean, and I got out there and I just made a new life for myself. And I'd have to attribute that to the fact that I'm at my new squash center. My manager is pretty much shafting me in my job there. I'm folding towels to go into the change room. I have 8 active listings going at that time. And he's actually gone back on an agreement that we had to build up this junior program. So I just basically, there's all these people, I just basically just threw the towels up in the air, turned around to him, and started giving him like everything I've like going off in his face like this. I'm telling him all the shit that he shafted me for, and how squash coaches and like how we have no leverage. If you're on a visa and you work here, you can't negotiate your contract. You're on a visa. You're like, go find another job. Good luck with that. You've got 10 days if I would have to find another job. Luckily, when I threw the towel up in the air, I was working 1 day a week at the country club around the corner because they didn't have a coach there. So I was crossing fingers that I could still keep that job. So basically it was just from necessity that I just got full on into real estate. I said, stuff that. And I'm like, screw this.
So talk about 2020, we met yet?
Yeah.
You were working at Berkshire, you're on the team. Team owner was very good to you.
Yeah, it was a great deal. It was the best deal. I could not believe how
Very good mentor to you.
Oh, the best. Yeah.
And then you wanted to scale and grow your business. You were doing roughly around $3 million in business then. What happened your first year in business? What do you remember?
In the first year, I mean, I think I did 10. Well, the thing was, I moved here because of, I started working with investors because I was just sick of wearing brown lipstick and not getting anywhere. Like this same guy who gave me the ticket to go to Mick, he has a $5 million house. He has an $8 million house on a hill around the corner, and basically didn't want me to list it because his friend, who's a real estate, his wife's a real estate agent who does it on the side. He didn't want to really piss off his friendship. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start working with more, like, see what I can do. And that's when I came here. And then when I came here, I was like, I have a bunch of these investors, and Berkshire just wanted so much paperwork or things that these guys had, like a lot of listings, and they wanted to give me to sell, and they weren't going to sell anyway, but I just wanted listings. I can talk about that, but I got into it. But basically the fact that all I ever read was that you have to get listings. It's all about getting listings, and I couldn't get listings. So then I thought, well, why don't I just take listings that nobody else wants? Then I started trying to do that. I just give me a listing. If it doesn't sell, we can rate it as high as you want, whatever. And people just wouldn't say no to giving me a listing. Then I started going into asking like attorneys, because I thought that lawyers would have.
Real quick, this is happening again. There's no sound on Zoom.
All right.
Are we using that Zoom camera or are we using this Zoom camera?
It's just on the phone, but it's
Sort of good thing that I need
Jim
to-
said we were good to go.
Okay, maybe it's just the guest, but that Zoom's your good. Can you hear us now, me and my friend Mick talking? All right.
So, sorry.
So I just started asking attorneys, like, do they have any clients who are investors, who have like portfolios, this and that? And lo and behold, they're one of the clients, the guy gets squash lessons to it at Huntington Valley, very big real estate lawyer. And he's like, yeah, I know a few people. And then same thing again, squash people just, they'll invite you to dinner, but will never give you their home address.
So you're not alone. So I'm gonna talk about this real quick because you don't know. So this happens, right? You guys ever notice this? Like past business, right? Past businesses, and people might not, have a bartender. How do I get them to think of me as a listing agent? Right? Or I do this, and how do you convert that, right? So you had two options. One, keep on being pissed off. Or two, do something about it, and that something about it would be, hey, let's change your minds, or let's go a different direction. What do you decide to do? You went a different direction, are you focused on investing?
Yeah, well, different direction for me, it's a bit like, again, it's out of necessity. I just being competitive, unless the shit hits the fan or my back's against the wall, I ain't gonna do, I don't really take that action. And I'm very cautious in how I jump into something, so to speak. So, yeah, I had to find listings, I had to find work, and
How'd you find the listings? Let's talk
just
about
as I said, like I just kept on asking investors, and I asked real estate agents. So I got this one after like hounding my friend, the lawyer, for about 3 or 4 months. He actually gave me the lead because now this investor was using another Keller Williams agent, a very big agent, probably the biggest agent in Philadelphia for distressed properties. And I said, just give me a chance with a few of them and see how I go. And for a year, they gave me 3 houses. I didn't sell one house. I didn't sell one house for them, and for a year, I wasn't hardly making any money from that. But they saw that I was dedicated to it. I would clean the porch. I just knew that if these guys had over 1,000 properties in Philadelphia, eventually it paid off. If it didn't, then well, bad luck. At least I tried. And then they saw how dedicated I was, and I got a house sold eventually. And like even how naive that I was, like, I was so happy to get my first listing with them. Put my Berkshire Hathaway sign up at the front. And then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from someone saying, hey, you're the landlord, can you get the electricity turned on? I'm selling this out. No, you're the landlord, blah, blah. I see, and then, so what happened was that a fake agent ripped my sign out, broke the lock on the door, put a new lock on the door, right? And then had a clipboard, took $3,000 cash, and now they're in the house, and the police can't get them out. Now they're squatters. So, then that's why I never put up a sign. I'm like, oh, I just bought signs last 6 months ago. So I had like 80 listings in Philadelphia. I didn't have one sign up.
So let's talk about your relentlessness. Okay. So you're relentless. So if anybody in this group's watching right now, what's your philosophy on someone that says no or doesn't get back to you? When do you stop?
Here we go.
Okay, so Mark Cuban, no is only a way to lead to yes. And I ain't stopping. I will be like, if you're not going to answer me, I'll just be that annoying prick that you have to answer me. And even if it's just to answer me saying you're not interested at this time, I will say, okay, great, at least I got your answer, I'll follow up with you whenever.
So not everybody can do that, right? Some people can do it, some people can't. Every person can do it, but most people have a belief they can't do it.
Yeah, but I have so there's still an imposter syndrome. I'm not a real estate agent. I am starting to be a real estate agent. I just hate taking no for an answer, and I'm still learning my business. I'm like, for example, like I just found a way to get where I wanted to go, and I'm still not even know how I'm going to get there, but I'm trying to find a way just to not make money. I enjoyed the fact of the competitiveness and doing deals. Like I just wanted to do deals. I want to negotiate. I don't want to fight for a listing. I actually want to fight to get something sold. So I didn't want to cross my fingers to get a listing. I said, just give me the listing and let's cross our fingers that it will get sold.
How many listings do you have now?
154. What? Yeah, and
Hold on, no, you can't go that quick on that.
Yeah, like, come on.
Well, let's just sit here.
How'd you?
Just relax. So you have how many listings?
154.
154. How many houses did you sell last year?
I think like 43.
Okay, how many are you on track to sell this year?
Probably like 7.
So you're on track to sell 70.
Yeah.
You have 100, how many?
54.
154.
So what happens? So a lot of the houses like between, I'd say like I've got a house on the contract now for 35K. I've got other houses that are for 250, 300, 400. They're not occupied. So I've got houses that are occupied or they're not. I work with investors, so.
Are you selling packages of houses?
Yeah, they're available as packages.
Are people buying packages right now or no?
Nah.
So we're same thing we were doing TCS investments, we were selling these turnkey, we'd buy 5-10 properties a month.
TCS?
Yeah,
Yeah, I sell my houses then, how many homes?
you have one of the original founders.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But it's hard to sell packages like 10, 20, 30, people like all the time say want it, I mean, those guys that now are doing, are they buying packages or no?
no, not really. That was a pain in the ass too, because you've got to get them into 20 homes, and all of a sudden, if they've got tenants in them and this and that, it's a very delicate situation dealing with tenants. That's one part that I've trying to sell an occupied house. It's tough. So I sell houses like in B and C areas. So for example, just yesterday, I'm trying to sell a house. I'm trying to get like clients giving me the house to sell. It's occupied, the lady pays rent. I have to call her to get photos because I don't want to go and take photos myself. I'd rather just let the tenants take the photos. So it's taken 2 weeks. I call her up.
You don't send, a photographer take them, give them the tenant?
Well, the thing is, what I've learned,
Let you in.
what I've learned is that if I'm renting it, like, can you imagine in these areas, like in a lot of underprivileged areas, that they're not happy with their property management company. They're not happy with they're not happy with certain situations. So here I come saying, hey, I'm Mick Fiteni, I'm being asked to sell your home. The first thing they think is, oh, do I have to get out? What happens to me? So I'm like, you know what? I speak to them now. I have I've just gone through after child and everything, a couple of years now. Asking them how they feel, what's wrong with their house, what did I fix with their house, explain the situation that, if it's a seller probably might want to keep you, they might want to get, you've got 60 days, and we'll work it out. And then I asked them to take photos themselves because it's very intrusive from the start, you know what I mean? So then I asked, can you just take photos of the living room, take photos from I just open the door. Sometimes I don't send photos back to them, like I think in 2 weeks, and they're like, call up again, hey, it's Mick, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it, my house is messy, it's okay. Would you like me to come over and take photos? Some might say yes, some might say no. Ones that say yes, I will go over, or I'll get someone else to go over, like the property manager, someone to go over. But yeah, you have to know the people who live in the house, and it's not just a matter of them negotiating and understanding the seller's mindset. Now you understand the tenant's mindset, because a lot of times tenants will just stop paying.
Yeah.
Tenants might just not even allow showings, and then all of a sudden this house is no longer for sale. And then you got to go maybe offer cash for keys, or sometimes you got to go through some eviction processes. So my job is to avoid the eviction process. My job is just to keep everyone happy and then try to get done. But I don't sell many occupied properties. They all have to be vacant, shells, still the way it is. No, unfortunately, in B and C areas, I don't feel that people want to take on property, which is unfortunate because they're good standing tenants. I have the ledgers, I have everything paid. But
When you renovate it,
renovated and put someone out, then renovate, get more money for it. But all of a sudden you renovate it, it's still going to match the area. One thing. But I would say it's a 50-50 call on them actually keeping the tenants. Actually, yeah, it's 50-50 call, and I would say it's 30 stay, 70 leave.
All right, so how about investors? What's the feedback? We're gonna wrap up and ask some questions. What's the feedback? What's investors telling you these days?
Well, it's funny because being a squash coach, you always knew that the economy sucked because people, the first thing they'd stop spending money was their leisure. And as a real estate agent, the last thing that ever changes is seller's listing price. Buyers are, they're the first ones to tell you.
That's an interesting comment.
Because if I looked at it from that respect, sellers don't come down their price until they have to, and then maybe sometimes it's too late. Like for example, just last week I sold a house. It's a triplex. And I could write a book on that house. But that was listed for $225, and went under contract 3 times, and sold last week for $85K. The seller just had to get rid of it then. This is a guy who he's from Venezuela, had to flee Venezuela and lived in Santiago, Chile. And so he needed the money. But he was a desperate time in Venezuela moving out, so it's understandable that this guy wanted that much money. And here's me saying, man, your house is overpriced, it's never gonna sell for that. I stuck with it for 450 days, and I was a dual agent in the end, so thank God I got something out of it. But he got something out of it too. He just got his money back. He didn't lose all his money.
Are people getting more, what are sellers saying to investors right now? Are they buying as much? Are they trying to sell as much? They sit in the street, what are you doing?
I see myself becoming, my investors want to become buyers again.
Okay.
But still their numbers are still very low. Their
What
numbers,
percent low? Talk about, so it's 100 grand.
well, for
Rates
example,
went from 3 to 7, what are they offering now?
well, my guys offer, they said they offer, most of my guys offer cash.
Okay. Where
And
they-
even a hard money loan still, that is quite expensive these days, but they use cash. They have their money or they'll
Pay cash for someone else
Yeah.
at a low rate.
yeah. But their buying prices haven't matched the market yet too, so we're really in the middle.
Transition time.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I still think it's a seller's market, it's still definitely a seller's market in that respect. And if it's if it's a buyer's market, has to be somewhere, that it's pretty slow. Like, for example, there's a house now, 88 Cherry Avenue in Collegeville. It's like 175. My investors want to buy that, and the house needs its tear down. But they want to buy it for 100. They think it's worth 100, but it's really 150. So you're starting to see a small shift in certain areas where the prices are adjusting, coming down.
Let's stay on that subject. So you guys understand right now with rates, right? What are rates right now?
Seven.
What were they?
3.
Okay. How much percent growth is that? Over 100%, right? So if you look at that now, and you look at a cost to buy a house, I just looked at a deal that I'm getting a seller to give me seller financing, I saved $2,200 a month.
Well, that's another thing too.
At a reduced rate, you're getting a reduced rate from the seller financing.
4% compared to 7. Right.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right, this thing you're gonna start seeing is that transition. Where do you get 3% money right now? Where can you get 4% money? Like, where can you get that? Number one is wealthy people that in a family that wants something conservative and they're fine. 2 is that person who's not wealthy, that is a conservative person that just got clobbered in the stock market. That was my parents. So they gave us money at 3%.
I was gonna say, it's a perfect time right now because the stock
Perfect time.
market's so volatile.
Yep.
Anyone who wants to make 4% of their money,
Yep.
don't put it in the stock
So I
market.
got 1 at 4, 1 at 3.
You're the seller, you got,
I get the seller to finance.
well, you're lucky.
At 4, and then me and my parents at 3. Isn't that interesting? So I just literally, I saved 100 grand in 5 years on that deal. You're gonna see that transition. It happened last time. It's happening now. Not enough people are being strategic about it. They're asking for sellers concession. But you're gonna start seeing it, people hold notes again. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. Mortgage and notes, I did that for years. There's a great company called Cama Plan, CAMA Plan, right? A lot of people lend money on that. That's a training I've done before, which is IRA money and lending it. Look at it, get trained on it, come over my classes on it, we'll talk about it. But you're starting to see that transition. And remember, don't be afraid to ask for it. Like, if something's sitting on the market for a while, a lot of people don't assume that person was reduced to price.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I just last week had to add seller open to all financing, excluding seller financing. Because I got that question all the time. My sellers won't do seller financing. They just want to get out and use that money to put into
The next project.
Next project.
But if they kept it, they could actually get that price.
Yeah,
Because they would have made the finance terms over the next couple
yeah,
of
really,
years.
yeah, that's the thing. You really got to figure out. Like, I would be putting on my flips now, like open to all things, FHA. I put open to all types of loans, except for some properties sellers. I asked them too now, like just exclude seller financing. We'll do everything but seller financing because they just want to get it out. But yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, it's time that we have to be salespeople again. That's really what it comes down to selling houses. I mean, it's just back to it's just back to normal.
Are you an investor yourself now?
No,
No?
no, I don't want the headache. I have a house, apartment with my wife and I in Holland that we rent out. Got my house here, and I just enjoy doing deals. I just want to be deal based every day. I just want to be in front of people, and I could, but I don't. I don't enjoy that aspect of it. I mean, I'm making money and I'm living my life just doing what I'm doing. And if I was gonna do it, I will be doing that maybe when I see an opportunity. I haven't seen opportunity for me to be an investor here, so to speak, because, yeah, I'm so busy and,
How many hours a week do you work?
Well, and then- so when I first started, I worked every day, like from Monday to Sunday, like just every day on the phone. Like, now when I say no, I don't work weekends, I'm just not behind my computer, but unless someone's can't get into a house or someone's gonna sit, unless it's actually gonna make money or I have to help an agent get into a house, because I just have a soft spot for agents who stand at a house and like a lot of times the lockbox is broken or they can't get in. And I will help them get in, no matter where I am. And then when they start being a bit of a pain in the ass on the phone, like this is always, is this your listing? I'm like, yeah, well, you called me, mate, it's my listing. Well, what's the code to the lockbox? Like, I don't know, mate, look on showing time. Well, on showing time, it has this, and this. I said, well, is it open? He says, no. So I go on my phone, I take all my codes, and I give them to them. Like, just try all these codes. And then I don't hear back. And then they're like, did you get in after an hour? Yeah, I got in. Okay, great. All of the other times, I have these security doors, like these VPS doors, if you like see these metal doors that are around, like you put the codes in, the buttons. And so I put it yellow, purple, green. And the agents will call me up. Why is there numbers on showing? I can't get in. I'm like, that's the code, dude. And other times, so I have other agents, like, I don't, you'd be amazed how many real estate agents don't know how to open a door to a house, but it happens, or lock the door. And so please, that's one of my pet peeves. It's like, for example, I have a hasp lock on the door. It's the house I sold last week, for 85. Hasp lock on the door, and there's a lockbox. So the code is 1218. And then they open the lockbox, they call me, there's no key in the lockbox. I said, the lockbox is the key. You take the lockbox off, you open the damn door. That's not how you do it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so you have to, yeah, that's.
So you're flexible, you work your butt off.
Yeah, I work my butt off,
So-
but now I don't work with, sorry, to get back to it, again, ADHD, I don't work, I work weekends, but I spend time recovering on my weekends. And then every Monday night, I like to try and do it every Monday night, I like to play music with my friends, like Acer and like just real estate buddies. So I have to play music one night a week. And Mark's in the band too, Mark comes along on Mondays. And
How's Mark?
Mark's a legend. You know, you guys like the band, or this guy can sing, man, he can play, it's so cool. It's like, yeah.
Joey wants to play at one of our happy hours, pretty cool, you and him would play.
Oh, mate, I mean, I don't know, yeah, I mean, I want to start a real estate, I was telling you before, I want to start a real
They
estate.
haven't said this, but I
company.
just tried to give a volunteer.
Oh, no, but I want to start a real estate band that would play real estate songs. Like stuff like what we built this city, or like brick house, or like the songs that maybe relate to you to real estate. Great idea.
That's cute.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to get into. I mean, I'm probably going to make more money from that than selling real estate.
Hey, Mick, my question. So are your investors asking you to find them land to build, or are you just
Well,
selling?
at the moment, they have land that they're trying to get me to sell.
Okay, so I'm just curious.
And that's taken a lot of time to sell. Like, yeah, and they still haven't adjusted their prices. I have a land lot for 1.2, and in West Philly, it's like 13,500 square feet. And they will take less, so I have to shop it around. Sort of like an off-market sort of price. But yeah.
Two things.
Yeah,
Song suggestion, burning down the house.
yes. I remember that one.
Secondly, you said you were allowing FHA. How do you get past the inspection with that, with distressed properties?
Well, not with distressed properties, but for example, if I have a flip house and it looks good, so to speak, yeah, definitely. But FHA, like for example, like scrape paint on a patio and things like that. Some of the stuff that they want to get done, besides the other stuff that should get done, yeah, so yeah, fine. I can paint whatever you want.
Okay.
But yeah.
What are our questions?
Do you feel like Philadelphia is overvalued, and if so, how much do you think? it's
Oh, shit, yeah, but, yeah, definitely.
Would you say like 10 or 15 or 20%?
Even though we don't mind, we went from a freezing cold room to a hot room.
You know, well, because I have houses in Philly and Baltimore, and the thing is that when COVID hit, people from New York would come down to Philly, people from Philly would go down to Baltimore, right? And now people from, a lot more people from Philly are going down to Baltimore, because the rents in Baltimore are pretty much comparable, the same as here, but the houses are much less.
Half off?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but the issue with Baltimore is, at the moment, is that there are a lot of empty houses. So it used to be, say, 6 months ago, that you get a hard money loan if there were a lot of, like, shells next to you. Now they won't give you a hard money loan if there's a shell on either side. You have to have construction, has to be development on that street. So lenders are now looking at the street, because, you know, yeah, there's a lot of empty houses in Baltimore as well. That's it's quite, yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah.
What other questions? Bill?
I have two questions. What kind of leverage do you have? Like, do you have virtual assistant? And two, with such a high volume of listings, what do you do to keep the sellers updated?
Oh, yeah, okay, so, the first one was
Kind of help their leverage?
how, I was very lucky that my investors have, and they have maintenance guys, they have, so I would leverage my, clients, what's that clients, okay, clients, I would leverage their infrastructure, their systems, their work, so I would just tap into that and ask them, or then get into, like, a property manager. I would actually find out who the person in that property management group who connects to the tenants, and then I would use that. And so getting into a house, I would go back to the property manager or the seller, get him connected with a locksmith, or, so I would do it that way. When it came to, and I have a VA, I had 2 VAs at one stage, but I went back to one because I was a lot more efficient with the one to that degree. And I needed a VA. So she came from the investor group that I was already working with. And because I had South American clients, I needed a VA who could speak Spanish.
What's that cost you per month?
I pay a VA team, they pay her at $320 a week. It's for 8 hours a day. And, you know, I'm not like, coming back to Bill, when I first hired VA, I came to Bill to ask, how do you structure your day and give them a list? So then I did that, and I did the list, like, oh shit, I need 2 VAs. So then I did have 2 VAs, but then I worked out how to make that more efficient and finding 1 VA. But also, so then I worked that out. And then I have a transaction, Jess, I use Jess, transaction coordinator, and I use a transaction coordinator in Baltimore.
And what company is that? Porter?
Porter. And yes, and then also, so the only thing that I'm really trying to be in the center of is the negotiation. If it's negotiation, I'm trying to get the listing and then work out with the seller to do, or the negotiation, I'm trying to sell the property. And that can be even just like maintenance stuff, or because, you know, when you're selling, it's not just the moment you get an offer, it's trying to get people to bring you an offer.
So I want to ask you guys this question. What was your takeaway today? We're going to wrap up at 12 o'clock. What was some of your takeaway from this side? Give me a takeaway.
We're all lazy.
The second question?
You answered it.
Yeah, like, what do you do, like keeping your sellers updated? Like, you have all these
Oh, this is
listings.
great, because
So
when I
they're
was,
all like, those
well,
listings
that was
that are
nuts.
sitting.
That's the thing, that was nuts, because when I was out with, so when I got my Maryland license, which is another whole, that's why, please get your Maryland license. It's so simple. I will teach you how to do it. I will, if you want listings, you want to help get, please come to me. I will help. I was using a different broker, and so with showing time, I would tell my clients would get a weekly update. So my VA every Thursday would just go and do manually a weekly update, because I didn't want to pay so much money for the added. It was like $250 a month for what I needed for showing time. So when I moved over everything to here, I just do weekly showing time this report. It's fantastic. And they're good with that, just the weekly updates. I don't do anything.
What was your question? Or what did you learn?
I was just gonna say, like, his ability to pivot, like,
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
what he wants to focus on.
Yeah, I think that pivoting is more like a sense of necessity, so to speak. Because, it's like, for example, I just go back to when I get to the airport and there's no one there, I'm like, what the hell do I do? I've got to find a way, figure it out. Like, what am I going to do? And like, for example, after I left my squash coaching job and had listings, like, after they all sold, COVID came, I had nothing. Like, I had no money coming in. I remember my wife, like, she's so cool, because my wife is, if I would not be here, it wasn't for my wife, because she actually supported me for almost a year. Yeah, so that, you ain't gonna do it on your own. I don't know anyone in real estate who's done it on their own. Some people have to go to a team and be mentored, but you cannot,
Family member,
family member, you can't do it on.
mentor or something.
So I did it on my own, so to speak, that I just kept on going at it. But there's no way without my wife and her bringing in some money for that time. And, even when I came over here, I came over because I thought I'd be making better money, which I did make better money. My wife's first job, she was making more money than me. What the hell? So then I'm like, she's always like, yeah, I'm always looking after her. And that was the only reason why I thought I could just take that plunge. And
But you pivoted and look what happened.
yeah,
What else?
I think the biggest thing is that you just do it, right? It's like you didn't think, I just have to get out there and do it and not overthink it like a lot of people do. And this comes up a lot in our real estate conversation. And you're one of those examples that just actually went out there and did it.
Yeah, I think by doing it, I just think that what I've learned from playing squash over the years, like I was a very attacking athlete, but I was extremely fit. So I would attack, but I would never make an unforced error. If I hit the 10 and I made an error, I would like smack my knuckles with the strings, or I'd do push-ups. So I'd be very attacking, but I wouldn't make an unforced error. So I wouldn't say that I took huge risks. I just sort of like, I would nudge you until you get really pissed off and then I back off.
But Mick, it's not important taking a risk, it's you actually just put yourself out there and did it. Like you could have just sat back and did nothing, like you went for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you didn't, not a huge risk, but you just put yourself out there.
So that as a coach, and I'd like to, like as a coach, and I'm coaching athletes, and I'd love to help anyone I can. But it's really about just trying to find where you feel comfortable to take that plunge. I don't think that people identify who you are and what you want to do. Okay, no, everybody thinks they want to be Mike McCann. I don't want to be Mike McCann. I'm going to go to the front every day and like holding people's hands and doing all this like that. I don't want to be that. But I do want to do as many deals as Mike McCann does. I do want to have that certain aspect and like just be out and like talking to people. So I think you got to really, first of all, I think people just have to find out, like I do with athletes, is how much time do you have in a day to commit to it? Where do you think you can accept your failures and your successes? What pisses you off? What makes you happy? And then like what you say, like the who's, like I read a lot of books as well. I think if you have a couple of books I'd recommend, best to help me in real estate, what's called Never Split the Difference. You have to read that book if you want to negotiate. If you want to understand people, you have to read that book. It's another one called You're Not Listening. You have to read that book too. It goes together. There's one called Who, What, Why. So that's a really good book too. Like just figuring out those. And I read a lot of autobiographies. When I just like reading other people's story, like I just love listening to like your story with your wife. It's a love story. Like how you're together since you were teenagers, like, and how you've done it together. It's like those sort of things. Figure it out. Yeah.
Relating to stories is much better than most people do better relating to stories than being taught. You ever notice that? It's like how I grew, we get more questions about this and more requests on this than anything else.
And
That's why
also,
I want to focus on where you came from, because it's interesting. I knew a lot of stuff. I didn't know all that stuff. The next time I see it, it makes sense when I start looking back at the things you've done, what you've been through, and why you did it.
well, thanks. But also, I'd say that I was very slow with the real estate too. Like I actually was into it, but I hung on the sidelines for quite a while too, just seeing what everyone done. Like I asked generally for help, and I would like get into his head, like, how do this, and I don't know if I can do all that. I don't know if I want to do that. So I was like, sitting on the sidelines for quite a while, trying to figure out where and how I want to do this, and still figuring it out now. But
I think you did a good job.
I still learn from everyone else here and everybody, like Jason, I just done it for a year and he's doing all this already. Like, this guy is doing more than what I did on my 3rd or 4th year. And like, admirable, so to speak. Like, that to me is impressive because they've done it there.
Helps you grow.
Oh, mate, someone like Jason actually gets my ass off the seat too, because look, I'm very competitive, but I'm not going to kick someone when they're down like that. And I'll kick you down. Yeah, I'm not going to kick you when you're down. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way you play. And I just love hearing stories and how everyone's success story. Like, I mean, everybody
Any
here.
failures?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get anywhere unless you fail. And it's really, you know, like the most annoying people for me are the ones who win well and lose bad. You know what I mean? You have to lose bad and just win's just, okay, what's the next thing? Like, who cares? No, it's just a win, it's nothing.
So this next turn, you're gonna see, and why you're seeing me push all this now is, culture's everything. And anything in life, when you're losing or your business is adjusting, some of you guys in this room today, your business is killing it. Some of you guys in this room today, your business is down drastically. The more you're around other people, even if they're up or down, the better than being at home.
My business is down too. I mean, I would say that my business is down, so I just have to like find a way to get business up again. And that's probably going to be more on the buyer side. But I don't know. I don't know. I just put my thumb up, and wherever the wind's going, I just might go there, and then I'll go there.
I like that. Can we give a round of applause? Kill CNBC, and then we just get one quick picture like we always do to support Mick, and we got lunch already out there.
Thanks for showing up too. Thank you.
This guy doesn't give me just